I didn't tell this story for a long time because it didn't fit anywhere. It wasn't dramatic enough for the news, too strange for the incident reports, and every time I tried to explain it out loud, I could hear how it sounded, like a campfire story someone had overcooked. So I stopped trying. But a few weeks ago, a third-year student emailed me asking about field camps in remote karst regions, wanted advice, wanted to know what to expect. I stared at that email for a long time before I replied. This is the answer I should have given. There were 5 of us on that trip. That part matters, because people always misremember it later. Add an extra person, move things around, try to make the numbers make more sense. 5 is correct. Me, James, Kara, Mira, and Holly. I was the geology student, 2nd year, structural path. I like systems that stayed still long enough to be understood. Layers, pressure, time. I'd chosen geology partly because rocks don't surprise you. Holly was the other geology major, smarter than me, better organised, the kind of person who naturally ended up holding the map without anyone formally handing it over. If something needed deciding, she decided it. Mira was biology, invertebrates and ecology. She joined the trip because Cave sat in an awkward overlap between our disciplines and she needed the field credits. She was careful with language, always qualifying what she said, like she didn't want to scare anyone with half-formed ideas. Kara and James, well, they were both art students. Kara had taken geology, thinking it was an easy science elective, and James took it, well, because he wanted to be close to Kara. Oh, and Kara hated bugs, which made this whole excursion even sillier for her. She didn't despise them in a dramatic way, just a deep physical discomfort with the idea of things crawling where she couldn't see them. She told us that openly on the drive out, laughing like it was a personality quirk instead of a warning sign. James loved the trip before it even started. Selfies with the ute, panning shots of the road stretching into nowhere, commentary about how off-grid we were. He talked loudly, breathed loudly, laughed with his whole chest. He was the kind of person who filled space without meaning to. He showed off in front of Kara like a giant tool. We drove for most of the day. Kara, James and Holly were in the ute. Mira and I were with Ethan, our class TA. He was dropping us off before continuing to another site a few hours further on. Ethan was a real outdoorsy type, tall and rugged, the kind of guy you could see swinging a pick in the middle of a hard yakka commercial. He was going to camp for a few days and then get us on the way back. Part of me wished he'd stayed with us. Part of me is glad he didn't. The Outback doesn't arrive all at once. It thins. Trees give up height, the ground flattens, colours drain until everything looks sun-bleached and provisional, like the land hasn't decided what it wants to be yet. By the time we pulled off the road, there was nothing tall enough to break the wind. Ethan stayed long enough for us to unload, then disappeared in a cloud of dust. Camp went up easily, swags in a loose arc, ute parked nose out, just in case. The ridge sat a kilometre or so away, pale limestone catching the late light, its face fractured and uneven, interesting but not urgent. Dinner was instant noodles, and something James insisted on filming for his channel. Like I said, tool. Kara swatted at flies and kept her sleeves pulled down despite the heat. Mira wandered the edge of camp, crouching now and then to look at tracks or insects, not writing anything down yet, just getting a sense of the place. That first night was ordinary. Ordinary enough that nothing stands out unless you go looking for it later. I zipped my swag tight and lay on my back, watching stars that didn't flicker. The air cooled quickly, dry enough that every breath felt oversized in my chest. Sometime after midnight, I woke up scratching my nose. Not on the outside, the inside, high up, where your finger can't reach, a dull, persistent itch, like dust that hadn't settled properly. I sniffed hard, rubbed my face against my sleeve, rolled onto my side. Out there, everything is dust. It didn't worry me. I fell back asleep. In the morning, Kara was already complaining. "I swear something touched my face last night," she said, shaking out her swag like it had personally offended her. "I don't care if it was a leaf or a moth or whatever. I hate it." James laughed and filmed her reaction. Mira crouched near the fire pit, frowning at the ground. "Did anyone step on this?" she asked. She nudged it gently with a stick. A spider, small, pale, completely crushed. Kara recoiled immediately. "Ugh, kill it again!" It's already dead," James said. Mara tilted her head. "Colour's odd," she said. Not alarmed, just curious. "Could be juvenile?" "Or it could just be dead," James replied, already bored. No one argued. The spider was flicked away and forgotten. I noticed my nose itch again while we packed up. Just for a moment, then it passed. Holly checked the maps and nodded toward the ridge. "There's limestone exposure up there," she said. "Might be a shallow cave system. Even if it's nothing major, could be good for samples." Kara groaned, but didn't object. James was already filming. And I remember thinking, very clearly, that it would be good to get underground for a bit. Somewhere cool, somewhere still. That was how it began, just with the idea that there might be something interesting in the rock, and the quiet confidence that nothing bad ever happens that fast. The ridge took longer to reach than it looked. That happens a lot there. Distant stretches once you start walking, the ground just uneven enough to make you aware of your breathing. The heat crept up steadily, pressing in through boots and packs until the pale limestone ahead started to look inviting purely because it promised shade. Up close, the rock face was fractured and irregular, layers of limestone pushed up through the dirt at odd angles, split by narrow seams and vertical breaks. Water had worked through it once, a long time ago. You could see where it had widened cracks, hollowed pockets, smoothed sharp edges. Holly slowed automatically, switching from walking to reading the ground. "Karst," she said, or the start of it at least. I nodded. The features were subtle but familiar. Scalloped surfaces, calcite veins catching the light, the suggestion of voids behind stone that looked solid if you didn't know what to look for. Mira crouched near one of the fractures, peering inside. "Temperature drop," she said, "even this close to the entrance." Kara hovered a few steps back, arms folded. "I don't like it." You don't like bugs," James said, filming over her shoulder. "That's different." "Well, it's not different to me." The cave entrance itself was easy to miss, a vertical split widened by erosion, half hidden behind a slab of fallen rock. No dramatic opening, just a darker absence in the stone, cool air settling faintly around it. Holly clicked on her headlamp and leaned in. "Looks stable," she said, "at least the first chamber." Kara sighed, but followed. Inside, the temperature evened out almost immediately, cool without being cold, still, the kind of air that felt held in place. Our headlamps picked up familiar features as our eyes adjusted. Flowstone draped along one wall like frozen fabric, mineral deposits catching light in dull whites and yellows. The floor was solid underfoot, calcite instead of loose rubble. It felt safe. That's the part that's hard to explain to people who haven't been underground before. Some caves feel oppressive right away. This one didn't. It felt old and quiet, like it had settled onto itself and wasn't interested in us. Kara shone her torch around. "Oh," she said softly, "okay, this isn't as bad as I thought." We moved deeper, careful but unhurried. Holly stopped now and then to point things out. I found myself slipping into explanation without thinking. Bedding planes, pressure, how long it takes for water to carve space out of stone like this. Mira listened, but her attention stayed on the walls. "There's biological residue here," she said at one point. "Silk maybe, or something like it." "Ugh, spiders?" Kara asked, immediately tense again. "Probably," Mira said. "Cave-adapted species don't need much to survive." That didn't help Kara's mood, but nothing happened. No spiders ran across our boots, no sudden movement. The cave stayed quiet. About 20 metres in, the ceiling lowered slightly and the walls narrowed. Not enough to trap us, just enough to make you aware of your shoulders, your breath, the sound of boots on stone. That was when my nose itched again. Same place, same dull pressure. I sniffed, rubbed at it with the back of my hand. "Dust?" James said, grinning at me. "Yeah," I said, "probably." Mira had stopped at a shallow alcove on the right-hand wall. "Hey," she said, "this is interesting." We gathered around. The alcove was dry, sheltered from any obvious water flow. On the back wall were small clusters of pale nodules, stuck together in irregular patches. They were no bigger than grains of rice, dull rather than glossy. "Calcite?" Holly asked. Maybe," Mira said, "but the shape's odd." Kara leaned in, then immediately leaned back again. "I don't like that." "They could be egg clusters," Mira added carefully. "Some spiders lay them in dry, protected spaces like this." "Are they alive?" James asked. Mira watched them for a moment. Nothing moved. "It's hard to say." No one suggested leaving. Holly took a few photos for reference. James filmed a close-up. I scraped a small sample from the surrounding rock, careful not to disturb the clusters themselves. We stayed longer than we should have. At some point, something brushed my cheek. I flinched, swiping at my face. A single spider dropped from the ceiling, landing between my boots before disappearing into a crack in the floor. Just one. Kara jumped back. "Okay, that's enough." Holly checked her watch. "Yeah, okay, let's head back. Lunchtime." As we turned towards the exit, the itch in my nose sharpened briefly, then settled again, like whatever was causing it had shifted position. I didn't say anything. The cave let us go easily. Light widened ahead, the air warming as we stepped back out into the open. The ridge looked the same as it had before, solid, unchanged. We started down towards our camp, already talking about lunch. None of us realised yet that we'd left something behind, and that something else had come with us. We made it back to camp and treated ourselves to a hearty lunch. Baked beans over the fire, toasted bread, lashings of butter. Once satisfied, Holly brought out the map again. "Okay," she said, turning back towards the ridge. "I don't think we'll find anything better than that cave around here. I suggest we head back for the afternoon and have another look. We didn't actually collect anything useful." Kara groaned. "Please tell me you're joking." "Well, I'm not," Holly said. "Photos are fine, but we need physical samples. We rushed it." Mira hesitated. "We did see egg clusters." "Yes," Holly said, already adjusting her pack, "and we didn't log their location properly. And if we're going to do this, we need to do it properly." James perked up immediately. "I didn't get good footage either. That light was rubbish." Kara looked from one to the other. "You said 10 minutes. "And it was," Holly said, "but this is field work. We have a job to do, and I don't see anything better on the map." I didn't argue. I wish I could say I felt a sense of dread or warning, but I didn't. The cave had felt calm, controlled, the kind of environment you could understand if you took your time. The heat had already started to ramp up, so the thought of the cool interior was a welcome one. Inside the cave, things felt much the same as before. Cool air, stillness, the soft scrape of boots on stone, headlamps clicked back on, beams settling into familiar grooves. Holly took charge of the work. "Same plan," she said. "Pairs, don't wander off." She paired off quickly. She and James took the left-hand wall where the limestone fractured more heavily. Mira and Kara moved towards the alcoves we hadn't checked yet. I stayed near the centre, working a vertical seam that looked promising for sediment samples. At first, it felt almost routine. I chipped carefully at the rock, listening to the dull, reassuring sound of stone giving way, the smell of limestone dust mixed with the cool air. Somewhere nearby, James was narrating into his phone again, his voice echoing slightly. That was when I noticed how quiet the cave actually was. No dripping water, no distant flutter of wings, no scuttle of insects you'd expect in a place like that. The silence pressed in once you stopped talking. "Kara!" Mira called out. "I'm here," Kara replied, her voice sounding thin but steady. "This wall's gross, lots of that silky stuff." "You guys find anything?" Holly called from a passage on the other side. "Just more of these clusters," Mira said, her voice echoing through the chambers. "They're deeper in here. I'm going to head in further, get some samples. Kara, you check out that section." I finished my sample and straightened, stretching my back. The itch in my nose flared again, sharper than before, then eased. I rubbed my nose roughly with the back of my hand and continued chipping at the rock. That's when I heard the scream. It was short and cut off abruptly, like someone had been startled rather than hurt. a sharp intake of breath, followed by the sound of something hitting stone. "Kara!" Mira shouted. We all moved at once. Confusion dropped like a net. "Where is she?" James shouted frantically. "Kara!" I don't know," answered Mira. "She was just here." A few seconds, then Holly. "She can't have gone far. Spread out." The alcove Mira and Kara had been working near was only a few metres away, but there were a number of passages leading from it, and the light shifted around, blurring distances, casting shadows. I could see light flickering from deeper within, moving as the others searched. I headed down into one that sat in darkness, torch shaking in my hands. "Kara!" came James's voice again, even more frantic than before. "Where are you?" Minutes stretched by. The darkness seemed heavier with every breath. I was about to turn back and search another passageway when my light fell upon a notebook, then a pen, then feet. Kara. She was on the ground, and she wasn't moving. "She's here!" I shrieked. "I've got her!" "Keep yelling," came Holly's voice, confident and in charge. "We'll find you." I did as she asked, yelling loudly and waving my torch around to try and direct them. I grabbed for Kara's wrist, feeling for a pulse. She was alive. Her headlamp lay a short distance away, smashed. Her pack was tipped over, contents spilled across the floor. She was unconscious. There was blood on her forehead, dark and already drying around a shallow gash near her hairline. Eventually, mercifully, footsteps neared, torchlight flooded the passage, and Mira bounded into view, James and Holly just behind her. Mira immediately dropped to her knees. "Kara, hey, can you hear me?" Kara didn't respond. Holly knelt beside them, calm despite the tension. She must have tripped, hit her head. James hovered uselessly, camera forgotten. I scanned the area instinctively. No loose stones, no obvious cause, just that same wispy silk littering the walls and floor. Kara stirred then, a low sound escaping her throat, but she didn't wake. "We need to get her out," Holly said. "Now." No one argued. Between us, we lifted Kara carefully. She was heavier than I expected, her body limp and uncooperative. Her breathing sounded rough, shallow. As we carried her towards the exit, I felt something brush my wrist. I looked down. A spider clung briefly to my sleeve before dropping away into darkness. Just one. The cave stayed quiet as we left. Too quiet. Getting Kara back to camp took longer than it should have. Carrying someone across uneven ground always does. Every step needed coordinating. Every shift of weight made her groan softly, a sound that sat wrong in my chest. She came to, partway down the ridge, eyes fluttering open, confused and unfocused. "Don't move," Holly told her gently. "You tripped. Hit your head." Kara swallowed. "My chest hurts," she said hoarsely. "And my stomach." "Concussion?" James offered immediately, like naming it might make it manageable. He was quiet, quieter than I'd ever seen him. No bluster anymore, just terrible concern. Mira didn't say anything. She watched Kara's breathing instead, her brow creased. By the time we reached camp, the sun was already dropping again. The heat had bled out of the day, leaving the air dry and brittle. We laid Kara down on her swag and cleaned the cut on her forehead as best we could. It wasn't deep, but it had bled freely. She kept apologising, slurring her words slightly. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't see where I was stepping." "You don't have to be sorry," Holly said. "Just rest." Kara nodded, then doubled over suddenly, coughing. It sounded wrong immediately, wet, thick, like her lungs were full of something that didn't belong there. She brought her hand up to her mouth and stared at it. Blood streaked her palm, dark red mixed with clear slime that stretched in strings between her fingers, and something moved. Kara let out a thin, broken sound and dropped her hand like it had burned her. Whatever had been in her palm hit the dirt and wriggled weakly. A spider, small, pale, alive. No one spoke. Mira was the first to move. She crouched, keeping her distance, eyes locked on it. "Kara," she said carefully, "did you swallow anything in the cave?" Kara shook her head hard, immediately dizzy again. "No, I would have noticed." Another cough shook her. This time she retched, gagging, spitting more blood-tinged mucus into the dirt. Nothing else came out. Holly stood up slowly. "We're staying put tonight," she said. "Driving in the dark would be stupid. We'll have to monitor her. Then first thing in the morning, we head back. James nodded too fast. Yeah. No one slept well. Kara drifted in and out of consciousness, moaning softly, clutching her chest. Mira stayed near her, checking her breathing, shining a light into her mouth and eyes whenever Kara stirred. I sat a little apart, my back against a crate, trying not to scratch my nose. The itch had deepened. It felt heavier now, like pressure building behind bone. When I swallowed, something shifted in response, subtle but unmistakable. I didn't tell anyone. Morning came grey and washed out. Kara barely responded when we spoke to her. Her breathing was shallow, rapid. When Mira checked her pupils, one reacted slower than the other. That's not just concussion, Mira said quietly. I rubbed my face and felt dampness on my fingers. Blood. It seeped from my left nostril, slow, thick and dark. When I pinched it, the pressure behind my nose spiked sharply, then eased again, like something retreating. Mira noticed. How long has that been happening? She asked. Since last night, I said. Maybe earlier? She nodded once, jaw tight. Okay. Okay what? James snapped. Mira took a breath. We need to leave. Now. Holly glanced at the ute. That was the plan. Mira's voice dropped. If what I think is happening, we don't have much time. Kara coughed again, her body jerking violently. This time, when she retched, something slid up her throat far enough to be seen before dropping back out of sight. James stepped back, face pale. What the hell was that? Mira didn't answer him. She was watching Kara breathe and listening. Holly tried the phone again. She stepped a little way from camp, arm raised, turning slowly like the angle might matter. The screen stayed blank, no bars, no emergency call option. Nothing, she said. James swore and paced, running his hands through his beard. This is ridiculous, we can't just sit here. Kara coughed again, a wet rattling sound that ended in a whimper. Her eyes opened briefly, unfocused, then rolled away. She's getting worse, James said. We have to move her. We get in the ute and we drive until we hit reception, or a town, or something. I don't know, James. She's not really stable, Mira said. Moving her like that could... Staying here is doing nothing, James snapped. You saw what came out of her mouth. Mira flinched but didn't back down. I also saw it retreat. Whatever this is, it responds to stress, heat, movement. So what, we just wait? James demanded. No one answered him. That was enough. Well, I'm not letting her die out here, he said. I'm getting her up. He crouched beside Kara and slid his arms under her shoulders. Kara's eyes flew open. Her body went rigid. She seized hard, fingers clamping onto James' forearm with surprising strength. He yelped, trying to pull back, but she held on, her face contorting as her whole frame arched. Kara! Holly shouted. Kara gagged. Then she vomited. It came out in a violent surge, blood dark and frothy, mixed with thick, translucent slime. It splashed against James' chest and beard, splattered his hands, soaked into his shirt, and with it came the spiders. Dozens of them, hundreds, tumbling over one another, slick and frantic, legs scrabbling as they spread. They poured down James's chest, into the folds of his clothes, tangled in his beard. He screamed and stumbled backward, dropping Kara onto the dirt. They're on me! Get them off! He slapped at himself wildly. The spiders scattered, then climbed again, drawn upward towards his face, his breath, the moisture at his eyes. One vanished into his beard, another into his ear. No, 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 no! James backed away from Kara, gagging. Spiders clung to his beard and collar, slick and frantic, legs tangling in the hair along his jaw. He clawed at them, smearing blood across his cheeks as he tried to tear them free. Get them off, he screamed. Get them off me! He staggered, not away from the ute, towards it. His foot caught on something, a guy rope maybe, or one of the scattered packs, and his balance went. His hands came up too late, flailed uselessly as he pitched forward. His forehead hit the hood of the ute. The sound was wrong, a heavy, wet crunch that seemed to carry through the metal and into the ground beneath our feet. James collapsed straight down, his body folding awkwardly as he slid off the hood and landed at its base. His head lolled to one side at an angle no neck should hold. He didn't move. For a second, everything stopped. Then the spiders began to leave him. They poured off his beard and shirt in small streams, dropping to the dirt and scattering away from the body as his chest failed to rise again. Whatever had drawn them to him lost interest the moment his breathing stopped. They sought shade. They sought darkness. Holly made a sound like she'd been punched in the stomach. Kara lay still on the ground behind us, eyes half opened, unfocused. Mira sank down beside James's body, hand hovering just above his shoulder, afraid to touch. He's gone, she said, very quietly. The ute stood between us and the ridge, its hood smeared dark where James had struck it. No one suggested staying any longer. We didn't discuss it. Holly moved with a kind of sharp focus that shut down argument. She hauled Kara's limp body towards the ute with Mira's help, grunting with the effort, her head lolling uselessly against Holly's shoulder. "Trey," Holly said to me, "you ride in the back." I didn't question it. I climbed up, gripping the side rail with my hand, my nose still bleeding slowly despite the pressure I kept on it. The metal was hot against my palm. Holly eased Kara into the back seat, Mira climbing in after her to keep her upright. Kara made a small sound as they settled her, then went still again. Holly slammed a door and jumped into the driver's seat. The engine turned over. For half a second, relief surged so hard it made my head spin. The ute lurched forward and picked up speed. Then the air vents inside the cab began to move. I saw it through the rear window first, a dark spill like ash blowing back into the car. Mira noticed a heartbeat later. "They're coming through the vents," she shouted. Spiders poured out in streams, crawling over the dashboard, spilling onto Holly's lap, onto Mira's arms as she tried to shield Kara. They'd sought safety under the ute, within its dark recesses. Now they moved with purpose, drawn upward by heat, movement and breath. Holly screamed and slammed her foot down on the accelerator. The ute lurched forward violently, throwing me backward against the tray. Dust and gravel sprayed up behind us as the engine roared. Inside the cab, it was chaos. I saw Mira beating at herself, spiders crawling up her sleeves, disappearing beneath her collar. Holly's hand shook on the wheel as spiders ran over them, vanishing into her hairline, her mouth, her nose, her ears. Kara convulsed once, her body jerking as even more spiders poured out of her open mouth. The ute hit a trough at speed. The world tipped. Metal shrieked. Glass exploded. I felt weightlessness, then the sudden, brutal impact as I was thrown clear. I hit the ground hard, my arm bending wrong beneath me, ribs cracking with a sound I felt more than heard. The ute rolled past me, smashing onto its side in a cloud of dust. I lay there, gasping, unable to move, staring at the sky as it spun slowly back into place, pain radiating through my chest in sharp, blinding spikes every time I tried to breathe. I could hear moans from the ute, choking, wet cries of pain and fear, and then mercifully, they stopped. Something tickled my cheek. I came to briefly at sunset. The world was orange and blurred. My mouth was dry to the point of pain. I couldn't feel my left arm at all. The pain in my chest was excruciating. I lay there for a long time, listening to my own breathing, waiting for the itch in my nose to turn into something worse. It didn't. I blacked out again. The next time I woke, I heard an engine. At first I thought it was my imagination, then voices, shouting, running footsteps. "Over here!" The voice seemed familiar. Hands grabbed me carefully, voices sharp with urgency. Someone swore softly when they saw my face. A shadow fell over me, blocking the sun. "You're alive," someone said, like they hadn't expected that outcome. I tried to answer. Nothing came out. Then everything went dark again. I woke up because something was wrong with the silence. Not quiet, silence that had shape to it, pressed flat. No distant voices, no trolley wheels, no footsteps leaking in from somewhere else. Just the slow, mechanical rhythm of air moving for me. I opened my eyes and immediately wished that I hadn't. The ceiling lights were too bright, too even. There were no shadows to anchor anything. For a moment, I couldn't tell how big the room was. Plastic curtains hung along one wall, sealed shut, their surfaces faintly fogged. I tried to breathe in properly and felt resistance. A mask covered my face. Panic surged, sharp and immediately, until a voice cut through it. "Don't move, you're okay." A figure stepped into view, then another. Both of them were fully covered, gowns, gloves, visors. Their faces were distorted by the curve of the plastic, expressions unreadable. "You're in hospital," one of them said. "You were found at the site of a vehicle accident. You've been unconscious for some time." I tried to speak, my throat burned dry and tight. "Just nod if you understand," they said. I did. They watched me for a few seconds longer than felt necessary, then one of them made a small mark on a clipboard. "There were others with you," they continued. The way they said it, carefully spaced, rehearsed, made my stomach drop. "How many?" I croaked. They didn't answer straight away. Emergency services recovered 2 survivors. 2. The word echoed, hollow. "Me," I said. "And?" The visor tilted slightly. "And one other," they said. Relief started to surface and couldn't find anywhere to land. "Where are they?" I asked. "Is it Holly or—" "They're being treated separately," the voice interrupted. "You won't be seeing them right now." Something about that phrasing felt wrong. "Why?" Another pause, another glance between them. "Because they're not stable," the voice said, "and because we're still assessing what you were exposed to." I felt a cold pressure bloom behind my nose. "Is it Mira?" I asked. This time they didn't pretend not to understand. "Yes," they said. "She's alive." The word landed heavier than I expected. "She's under sedation." I closed my eyes. Images rose uninvited. Mira crouching in the cave. Mira watching Kara breathe. Mira telling me not to touch my face. "When can I see her?" I asked. "Not today." They didn't say it like a rule. They said it like a mercy. "Rest," they said instead. "We'll talk again soon." They adjusted something on the IV, checked the seals on the curtains, and left me alone with the sound of my own assisted breathing. That was when I noticed it. Even through the mask, even dulled by medication, I could feel it. That faint, familiar sensation, high up, careful, exploratory. They told me I was being discharged by the end of the week. Clear scans, stable vitals, no sign of infection they could name, just a broken arm, 3 fractured ribs, and a lot of bruising. I asked if I could see Mira before I left. The nurse hesitated, then nodded. "Briefly," she said. "She's still sedated." They wheeled me down a different corridor than the one I'd been on. Quieter. The air smelled sharper, like disinfectant layered over something sour. Mira was restrained. Not fully, just soft bands on her wrists. Loose enough that she could move her hands, tight enough that she couldn't hurt herself. Her face was covered in small scars, tiny pock-like lesions scattered across her cheeks and jaw, clustered in places, irregular in shape. The same marks ran up her neck and along her hands, disappearing beneath the sleeves of the gown. They looked like they were healing. Mira's eyes were open, but they didn't settle on me. They drifted, unfocused, tracking sensations only she could feel. Her fingers raked lightly at her forearms, over and over, nails catching on fabric. She was whispering. At first I couldn't make out the words. Then I stepped closer. "Get them out," she murmured. "Get them out. Please get them out." Over and over. Same cadence, same quiet urgency. A nurse gently pushed her hands down when she scratched too hard, but the moment they let go, she started again. "Mira?" I said. She didn't react. I stood there for a long time watching her breathe, watching her hands move restlessly against the restraints. When I turned to leave, she spoke again. Not to me, just into the air. "They're still in there," she whispered. "I can feel them moving." No one contradicted her. After I was discharged, things moved quickly. Reports were finalised. The trip was quietly folded into a list of unfortunate but unavoidable incidents. The ridge was fenced. The cave entrance collapsed. No one mentioned egg clusters. No one mentioned coughing. Life resumed around the absence, like it always does. I went back to classes months later. I sat at the back. I kept my head down. I stopped volunteering for field work. Mira didn't come back. I never saw her again. Sometimes, when the air is very dry, I feel it. That faint itch, high up. Careful. I tell myself it's nerve damage, memory, anxiety looking for somewhere to land. Most days that's enough. but every so often I catch myself holding my breath without realising it, avoiding enclosed spaces, listening too closely to my own swallowing. And when I see emails about field camps, limestone ridges, shallow caves, remote sites hours from help, I close them immediately, because caves don't need to be hostile, they don't need intention, they just need time and people willing to breathe inside them.